Hey everybody, welcome back to Debug This Podcast. I'm Kevia Cloud. I'm here with SanMarco. We have a very special guest here today, but before I introduce her, I want to tell you a very funny story. Full circle. Me and this guest, we actually met a year ago when I moved down here to Arizona. She was actually one of the few people I met outside of my coworkers, obviously. We met at Galvanize. It was a React meetup. It was something like that. And, we met and we saw each other here and there at other events. She's a recruiter. She's very, very active in the area. So we didn't talk for almost a whole year. She posted something really awesome on LinkedIn. We reconnect. I'm like, hey, would you like to be our first guest on our podcast? And she's like, sure, go ahead. We make this thing happen today. Let me introduce you guys to Dayna Ciarfalia. Dayna, what's up? I wish we had what do you call those?
I'll post-production the applause.
Okay, there we go. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here
today. Thank you.
Yeah.
You want to just tell us about yourself, kind of what you do?
Yeah. So
you're in the area.
I will try to keep it short. I have quite a varied background, but the past 3 years, I have been recruiting developers in Phoenix. I recruit outside of development as well, but right away I kind of developed an interest and a liking for developers because they're so different from myself. They're way smarter than I'll ever be, to be quite honest. And it's been
a different way.
Working in the development space in Phoenix with startups. So, I have a background in career coaching and career development and helping people get to where they want to be. I used to have my own business doing consulting in that arena as well, but decided to bring together my career coaching and consulting skill sets with helping match good companies with quality candidates. So that's what I've been doing for the past 3 years. And now for the past year, I work with a local small firm called Concentric. So I'm the lead senior recruiter.
Oh, cool. Shout out to Concentric.
Yeah, Concentric Corporation. So
okay, cool.
We're small, but we're growing, and the dev space is where I love to be. So happy to be here.
Nice. Yeah, no, thanks for being our first guest. Before we talk about the post that initiated this interview, which I think is really awesome, I did read 2 of your articles that you put out, and I think they're really awesome. So for our audiences, I think you guys should go read that. One of them is how to brand like the big boys, right? Brand yourself
something like that.
Yeah. Brand yourself like the big boys. Pretty much brand yourself like McDonald's, Coca-Cola, all the big companies. You can do it just like how they're doing it. And the other one, which I thought was really, really personal and really, I think he was really brave for just putting it out there, was how you talked about your divorce.
Yeah.
How you talked about your divorce and how that helped you start your business, which I think is awesome because that's very personal. And this is not specifically just for people who had a divorce. I think everybody should read it because it's really about overcoming hardships and failures and making something big out of it, right? So
yeah,
that was a really good one.
Thank you.
There's in the post you mentioned there were a few books that kind of got you through tough times. What book would you recommend for our audiences for certain situations like that?
The biggest book that I recommend, and I've read a lot of books, but I think the one that I read that has had the most impact on my life in so many different areas is a book written in the 80s called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself by Shad Helmstetter. And it's funny because you read it and he talks about, he mentions things like floppy disks and we're like, what? But, right, you're like, floppy disks, like, what is this? But he wrote it in the mid 80s. So, but it's still extremely applicable today. It just talks about what are the stories you're telling yourself? What are the beliefs you hold about yourself? And how are those holding you back from getting to where you want to go and where you want to be? And I think a lot of times when we experience hardships, we create stories about ourselves that aren't necessarily true. And so being aware of those and knowing how to change those so that you can get to where you want to be, I think that was the biggest one.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. Would you be able to repeat the title and author again, just for everybody?
It's What to Say When You Talk to Yourself by Shad Helmstetter.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Get the affiliate link. Go on Amazon. You guys know where to go.
We'll put it in a post.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so let's get right into this post that you put up. I can't remember the exact date. It's probably like sometime in June, but it's 2006. Dayna spoke with over 400 developers, local people, right? All in the tech industry. So are these all developers, or are they just in the tech industry? Like, are they product managers too, or are they just...
So in total, the technical talent I've talked to is probably closer to 1,000, honestly.
Oh, wow.
It's a lot of people.
I mean,
whoa,
we talk to a lot of people. You got to go through a lot of people, you know?
Yeah, okay. Wow.
But, focusing in the development world, that's where that kind of 400-ish came from. So I haven't kept a spreadsheet of every single person I've ever talked to, because you can't really do that when you work for multiple agencies. So you try to connect with people and whatnot, but just kind of doing the math in my head on average, how many people in the dev space I talk to on a weekly basis, how many weeks, and kind of did the math that way. But it's been a lot, but it's been a ride. It's been a really enlightening ride.
How long did it take to talk to all those people? Like, what was the time frame?
I mean, I would say 3 years. Over the last 2.5, 3 years. Yeah. I mean, since I started, because you guys are developers. So obviously you have to recruit people. And I would say for you, being a developer or a lead or a dev manager, it's probably, they probably welcome conversations with you a little bit more openly than they would with someone like myself, because unfortunately, recruiters can have kind of a bad name for themselves, especially in tech, because it's so competitive. But I don't know. I guess I've just tried to differentiate myself and not trying to be a robot and sending out one message to 50 people. It's just about personalization, and
because we can tell those are canned emails.
Yeah. I mean, I get them. I don't like canned emails, so I would never send one. So, that's
a really awesome approach. Yeah.
Taken a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of creativity to actually get in front of and talk to these talented people, but it's been worth it, and it's been a lot of fun.
So one thing that jumped out immediately to us right here, to me and Eddie, was developers all talked about wanting to just join a great team. Great team, and that was higher than pay, and higher than ping pong tables, and higher than what do you call that game, the where you throw in the beanbag thing and you try and get into the cornhole. Higher than higher than all of those. You know what I mean? And one thing that me and Eddie really hate is slinging code. We hate that term.
Yeah.
We do not like that code, because if you see what we do on a daily basis, slinging code just makes it sound like it's haphazard and just random. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not creative. It's not like artistic. It's not well thought out. You know what I mean? And slinging code is completely opposite of what we try to do. So, and that was in your post, and that just immediately jumped out. We were like, that. We don't want to do that.
I mean, I think with the way that different companies work, and obviously if you have, I guess sometimes a lot of the reasons why developers are being hired from different clients is that they've realized that whoever they've hired thus far hasn't has created a product that is full of spaghetti code and desperately needs fixing, and maintenance and all of that. And obviously those roles are needed, but I think sometimes clients forget that, our market is crazy, it's tight, and in my experience, the really, really good developers and engineers, they don't want to just walk in and maintain code or go in and fix code. They want to create stuff.
There you go. Yes.
They want to create stuff, and I think that, I don't know if companies really realize that maybe they need to focus more on, okay, well, if you're going to walk in here, here's what we need you to create. Yes, you're going to have to fix all of this over here and refactor, rewrite, fix the spaghetti code, but we also want to create this over here. And a lot of times it's, job descriptions are just meh.
I think me and Eddie we've been talking about that for a long time, right? Like just like you want to go in and if you're just knocking out Jira tickets, you're just knocking out maintenance stuff, right? It doesn't really matter how high the pay is because you're gonna get accustomed to it. More money, more problems, right? So the money's gonna kind of fade away. That you're gonna get jaded by that, and you need something that's gonna keep you motivated and pumped. Like I know this is very cliche and over the top, but changing the world, right? Like we all want that. We all, we say that in whatever respective industry we are in, we want to change the world. So that's what gets us excited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I will say though, which is still kind of surprising to me, but there is a pool of development talent. And I think it's mostly because they've just been doing it for a long time and they know that maybe they're a bit jaded. But I think in any industry, there's a point at which you can get jaded, depending on where you've worked and the experiences you've had. But there are a group of developers out there who they don't mind just doing the quote unquote maintenance and the easy stuff. They've done so much with their experience and time, and they've experienced so many different things negatively and positively that they get to a point where they're just like, whatever the company needs me to do, like pay me this amount and I'm good. But those aren't always the developers that you want on a team like yours, in which you need to have that creative mindset. You want to be changing the world. And obviously when you interview those types, which I'm sure you've experienced before, it pretty quickly, whether they're truly passionate and excited about creating solutions or if they're just kind of coasting. And
so actually, I've never been on that side of it. That side of the interview. Eddie, would you attest to that? Like, is that kind of noticeable? Is that a thing that like pops up pretty quickly?
I think you can really tell if somebody's going to be passionate about the job that they're about to do. I think that's kind of what I'm looking for when I interview potential coders for our team, which is, we're trying to create a championship team, right? So we're looking for those people who are hungry and they don't want to just kind of be the maintenance developers. So I'm looking for like passion, and I'm looking for a sense of like drive to do better, to be in the championship team. So that's kind of what I look for on that side of the thing. So I actually have a question about like kind of the overall study. Did you kind of foresee, because I mean I kind of know my own personal experience in terms of like how my goals shifted over the years, but regards to what you were kind of seeing for a lot of different developers, would you say that the sentiment for changing from like I just need to make money to I want to make an impact, or I want to be able to do creative things within my position, has that changed over the years as you were kind of conducting this survey, or is it more like it's always been like that, but now it's kind of like it's just more obvious?
So I don't know that it's necessarily changed, but I think that I will say I see it more in the JavaScript space, where people are like, I want to make a difference. I want to create world-changing solutions. So obviously, like I'm recruiting .NET, Java, JavaScript, front-end, backend, you name it, across the board. And I would say the JavaScript group as a whole usually is a little bit more creative, a little bit more passionate. The .NET developers, they are and can be as well, but I would say that they're a little bit more of the like, what's the solution I need to create? They're a little bit more black and white, like, can I do it? Are you going to pay me the right amount of money?
Yeah.
And if those line up, then I'll do it. And it's not so much about what's the solution? Am I changing the world? That's not necessarily the thing that they need to do. They're like, is it a good team? Is it something I can do and help out with? And am I going to get a good rate? But in the JavaScript space, it's more about, I want to make good money and I want to be on a good team, but I also want to create something that I can get behind. And I think that's also a generational thing. It's not to say young versus old, but I think someone who is a little bit newer in their career in terms of development, whether that's 1 year, 2 years, 5 years in, I think they're still excited about the possibilities of what they can create and the teams they can be a part of. Not that the older developers aren't still excited. Many of them are. But as I mentioned, it just kind of depends on their experiences. So I haven't seen a change over the last few years, but there are differences in terms of the stack of the developers and what they focus on in terms of, when I ask them, what do you really need and want? What are you looking for? And how many of them actually say a product I can really get behind, or like changing the world. So just depends.
I'm curious if it has much to do with like the fact that JavaScript developers in itself have to be adaptable. I wonder if because if you're doing PHP or Perl or .NET, it doesn't change much. Like syntax does change often, and they'll do new versions which will add new features. But for the most part, it's pretty much the same as it was 10 years ago. I'm curious.
Yeah.
I would be curious if someone would do a study on, the difference between front-end JavaScript developers versus back-end developers to see, because they have to be more adaptable, it makes them more creative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I actually had this conversation with a senior .NET engineer whom I'm good friends with, and he's has a great personality, super bubbly, super passionate. A lot of the things I don't typically see in senior level .NET talent, good or bad, doesn't matter. But I asked him, I said, in my years of working with developers, I see JavaScript developers are a little bit more outgoing, they're more bubbly, they're more passionate, they're a little bit more just creative. And then I have these .NET developers who are usually a little bit more black and white, a little bit more pragmatic, and they just have a different approach and a different personality. And I said, why is that? What do you think that's about? And he's like, well, think about this. If I'm a back-end .NET developer, the screens I stare at all day are black and white and gray. If I'm a JavaScript developer, the screens I stare at all day are a little bit more colorful.
That's true.
Dude, that is so interesting.
I know. What? And I was like, oh my gosh, I think there's something to that.
So I'm actually really curious as if, does the language actually make the personality or the developer? You know what I mean? Like if they have the influence on that like person, or does the person gravitate towards JavaScript? Like which way is it? Is it the chicken before the egg or egg before the chicken?
I don't know.
So can you like, okay, if you had like 10 developers, right? Would you be able to spot, like, would you be able to like look at them, be like, or at them and just be like, okay, yeah, she's a JavaScript developer, he's a .NET. Like, would you be able to kind of sort of discern from a group of like 10 developers? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
easily.
that's really crazy. Oh, wow, easily. That is so crazy. That's cool.
Well, and like if I can't discern, then I'm not a good recruiter in my mind.
That's true. Yeah.
True. Yeah.
If I don't know the difference between the languages and frameworks and the things that make everything in technology different, then I'm not a good technical recruiter. So
that's cool. You just,
I don't know.
Dang, just getting to know you, like that's 1,000 points right there. That is really cool.
Thanks.
That's awesome. That is so cool.
There's a lot to learn. It's not easy, but I mean, if you're going to choose to be a technical recruiter, if you're going to choose to work on development positions, then you need to know your stuff. And if you don't, you'll get called on it. So.
Wow. So what do you have to do to stay on top of your game? Like, do you read up on this stuff? Do you? Yeah. I imagine you learn a lot just by talking to a lot of developers. But is that like a part of your routine, your regimen? Like, do you have to go out and like actively learn, I guess, each technology, each stack?
So I think for me, it's a combination of talking to a lot of people, because when I talk to a developer, I'm not looking to push a job at them. I'm looking to understand what they do, why they do it, how they got into it, where they're trying to go. Okay. And then I continually ask questions about, well, why'd you choose Angular over React? Or when you started your career, why did you choose C# over Java? So I've learned a lot just by asking questions. And when I first started in development, that's the only way I learned. As I was like, walk me through your day to day. What do you do with this technology? Why do you use that with this? And over time, just talking to so many people, the connections just really clicked for me. And then whenever I would hear somebody talk about a technology that I'm not familiar with, I'll just, while I'm on the phone with them, one of my strategies to sounding like I knew what I was doing when I really didn't was while I was on the phone with people and they would talk about technologies I wasn't familiar with, I would literally Google it while I was on the phone and then like add it into the conversation, and they'd be like, wow, you really know your stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I do. So a lot of that. And then, following, just like you guys probably do, you check into Pluralsight, you watch YouTube videos, you follow, I follow a ton of different influencers on LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. Obviously, I'm a recruiter, but I don't just spend time recruiting. I also spend time reading up on, things like blockchain and cryptocurrencies and Angular 6 and all these things. Like, I need to know this stuff. Like, if I'm not keeping up with the trends and knowing what versions are out and how they're used and what companies use what and why, then again, I'm not very good at my job. That's
That's actually
really part of my job. So.
That's so commendable because, I think we were always complaining that we had to learn a lot, like new frameworks and stuff, but we're just like in one little language. It sounds like you have to do it across the board and learn about the people. And I mean, it's just like, you're kind of like all over the place, you have to like take it in. So, wow, that's pretty amazing. I've never spoken to a recruiter this deeply. So I never knew the struggle.
It's been interesting, but it's funny. Like the other day I was on LinkedIn and I reached out to, because I have several clients with multiple different needs right now that I'm working on behalf of. And obviously I have to recruit. And a part of that is connecting with people on LinkedIn and sending messages. And I had this developer, he connected to me only because he's like, well, normally I wouldn't connect with a recruiter, but so-and-so says you're cool. So, and then he proceeded to say, but if you go through my connections and start reaching out to people, I'll promptly unlink you. And I'm like,
oh, wow.
We'll actually do that. He was very defensive. And again, I can't blame him because I know that a lot of people have negative experiences, but I guess I just get surprised when people are so defensive against a recruiter reaching out to you. But at the same time, I don't sit in your shoes and I don't get 100 people sending me messages every day. So I can imagine how annoying and overwhelming and time consuming that can be for them. So I don't take offense to it. I'm just like, well, connect to me, chat with me for a while. And, if you ever want to take a look around, then I'm here. But yeah.
Well, after speaking to you just right now, it's like, it seems like it's a few bad apples. I'm not going to lie. There's always I guess the common consensus in our group is like, recruiters are sort of spammy and just, it does have a bad connotation, it does. But now, I think I'm gonna change the conversation a little bit. I'm like, no, but the good ones do a lot of work, man. You know what I mean? So
it's kind of like bad coders. It's kind of like bad coders giving good coders a bad name, people who screw others over. I've had that. But we can go back to the post real quick that you were doing because it's such an interesting post. I was just kind of curious if there was like something very surprising that you found when you were kind of conducting this thought experiment. What's the most surprising thing that you found out about the result?
I think the most surprising thing that I figured out after talking to so many people is how many, I don't want to say bad managers, but
you can say it. It's okay.
Yeah. How many people have, not outright said, oh, I have a terrible manager, but, in gleaning information from people about why they're looking or what they want in a new position, I was surprised to see how consistent across the board it was. There were indirect comments about management that isn't, whether it's supportive or open to new technologies or, open to conversation about what they're using, how they're using it, and how potentially using something different could help either speed up the project or whatever it is. I was surprised that whether it's a small company, enterprise level company, doesn't really matter, but how a lot of times closed-minded sometimes managers are, or they're not willing to let their talent grow, or they're like, well, we need you on these projects, so you can't touch that yet. But what I think is surprising is how, despite how crazy our market is and how, it's been that way for the last couple of years, but that management still isn't quite getting that their lack of communication, their lack of openness, their lack of all these other things is causing them to continually lose talent. And you know what I mean? And it seems like, I don't know if, I'm not a dev manager. I don't know the struggles of that. And I imagine it's a lot of, top-down management where they have to make decisions based on the executive suite and they can't do anything about it. But still, it just is surprising to me that leadership is not acting like their development talent. They're really good engineers. They're not acting like they're as important as they are.
That's one of the biggest.
Company and you lose your best engineer, you can't just hire another best engineer tomorrow.
That's right.
And that's one of the biggest demotivators is when your management's not listening to you on those kind of issues, right? And after you try 3 or 4 times, you just kind of give up, and you're just like, and then that's when you become, hey, I'm just not gonna have Jared tickets now. Like I was trying to tell management about this new stack or there's something like that's exciting that's coming out or what I think. And when they shut you down like a couple of times, you're just like, okay, you clock out. You're just like, okay, I'm just gonna be here and just do my maintenance stuff and eventually probably leave. So
it's almost like the like management is trying to hire high-skilled developers and then don't take the advice of said high-skilled developer. We want you just to sit there and put your fingers on your keyboard and say, not be the really high-skilled, advanced software engineer that could really bring some great ideas to an already existing project or a new project. They're just not taking that into consideration. That's what it sounds like to me. It's unfortunate though.
And I'm going to butcher this, but Steve Jobs said something along the lines of like, we don't hire smart people to tell them what to do. We hire smart people to tell us what to do, or something along those lines. Yeah. And I think that's like just an amazing quote because we're sitting here, we're the ones that are working on this every single day. We're like on the front lines, and that's like not listening to your soldiers that are on the front lines or your general who's like relaying what's happening on the battlefield every single day, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's the downfall of whether it's you work for a tech company, but the executive team isn't technical, so they don't really truly understand what it takes to build a product that does what they want it to do. And their expectations are off, or they say, we want you to build this feature and we want you to have it done in a week. And then the development team's like, wait a minute, no. Like, you don't even understand how much we have to do in order to make that happen. And they're like, well, just make it happen. And I know that that's really frustrating for a lot of the developers I've talked to as well. It's just working for whether it's managers or an executive team or whatever, that doesn't truly understand what they're doing and how long it takes to get certain things done, or they don't necessarily value IT the way that they should, or many other reasons.
You know what the interesting about that is, developers can actually get unhappy when they feel like they're not doing their best. When I have to just knock out code because of a deadline, I feel kind of bad. It's kind of crappy. You know what I mean? Like, I want to write maintainable code. I want to write clean code. I don't want to sling code, right? That term. And the more I do that, I'm gonna mentally clock out again. So I'm just be like, well, this doesn't matter. Tech, they don't care about tech debt. So whatever. I'm just going to knock out some code and just do whatever I got to do.
So based on like the results of this experiment you were doing, like if you could tell the agencies in the Valley, anywhere, whoever's watching, like a really important thing that they should maintain or they should think about when trying to hire these devs or talk to other, what do you think that would be?
Gosh.
I know it's a hard ask. It's like pick one thing that's the most important.
So many things. So if I were talking to other recruiters, what I would tell them if they're trying to hire developers is that you need to dig deeper and figure out more than just what have you done? Can you do it? And is the price right? And I think when it comes to really truly hiring talent that is the right fit for your clients, you really truly have to spend more than 15 minutes on the phone with someone. You have to dig deeper into the why behind what they do and why they do it, what are their current pain points and why are they looking to move, and what will the client you're working with truly offer them that their current work environment doesn't. Because I think the biggest thing in our market is there are so many jobs that if someone isn't happy, they can easily find a new position. So recruiters need to keep that in mind. But also, development managers and any managers who are looking to hire development talent, I think that they need to do their part in not just screening on a technical basis, but they also really need to make sure that they're hiring a person who truly understands what they're getting into. And they're not hired under false pretenses, because a developer will walk in the door and figure out that you lied to them very quickly. Experience happened before. It's if a manager needs developers, then they may sell everything about that company that may be true, but they may also leave out a lot of the things that make that position negative and things that may make them want to leave. But I think a really good manager and a really good team tells their potential future talent, like, look, this is the mess you're walking into, but here's why you should walk into it willfully.
Okay, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah. I think just being transparent, whether you're a recruiter or a dev manager or anyone else, people just want honesty and transparency. And I think if you keep transparency throughout the entire process, people understand and willingly walk into a mess, but they understand why they're doing that and why it makes sense and how they're going to grow, then worth it sometimes. It depends.
So I'm kind of I'm the lead tech or the lead dev at the company I work with. So I do a lot of the hiring for the team, for the department that I'm in. And what I'm not seeing too much is I'm not seeing a lot of diverse candidates. I don't know if it's just the recruiting companies agencies that we're working within, but I would love to be able to hire a more diverse team. I think it's super important, but I'm not seeing a lot of that in terms of candidacy. So was asking like you if you've seen that as well, or maybe if you have some tips for companies and dev leads like me who want to make the workplace more diverse, but just don't see the candidates come through.
So diversity, I mean, obviously that can mean a lot of different things,
sure.
But in the dev world, as much as I think we're headed in the right direction diversity wise, I think companies who are wanting to hire senior level talent, there's a lot less diversity than junior level talent. Mm-hmm. So over the last several years, I think we've seen a huge push specifically towards women in development.
Yep.
And that's wonderful, but there's still a really small percentage of women who are senior level engineers. And if they are a senior level engineer and they're good, their chances are they're paid extremely well and they're treated even better. Mm-hmm. So they're hardly ever looking. And if they are, it's very, very, very passively. And they don't apply to positions. The best female engineer I have ever met, I mean, she was probably the coolest engineer I've ever met. Like, she was a badass in every way. And I was just like, dang, I would love to work with you. But her company, she worked with a manager who has kind of taken her with him everywhere he's gone. And he treats her so well, and she's paid well, and they make it so that it would be outrageous for her to leave. And so I think that it's not that the talent isn't out there, but if specifically for women, that's just where I'm talking about right now. But if you're a truly talented engineer, you're being well taken care of, and you're not looking, in my experience, unless you're looking to make a move to the Valley or something crazy happens at your company and you hate it. But again, I think they're just really well taken care of. Now, there is plenty of newer talent when it comes to women. But if companies aren't willing to be flexible on the years of experience, or not willing to or not able to spend time training, then their teams will probably remain less diverse, unless you don't want to make. I don't know what the word is escaping me right now, but if you're hiring for a senior level engineer, but depending on where the scale is on what's more important to you is it more important for me to get a senior level engineer, or is it more important for me as a manager to diversify my team? And I think when you look at that sliding scale, and if it's more important for you to diversify your team, then I think being a little bit more flexible on your requirements would probably help with that. You don't want to do that, especially if you really have a lot of needs. But yeah, I think diversity is challenging, whether it's women or other ethnicities or age groups or whatever it is. I will say that for me as a developer, as a recruiter of developers.
You've spoken to so many. That's
I could be a developer. No, I could not. My brain does not work that way. But I guess I had hoped that there would find more diversity in my candidate pool that I offered to my clients, and I have found some of it, but I'm still surprised at the lack of overall diversity in the marketplace in terms of the clients I work with and the roles that I need to fill. There's plenty of talent out there. It's just there's a lot less of the true diverse talent pool, especially in senior level engineering positions.
So it kind of sounds like we haven't really made the effort as a society to kind of bring a more diverse group of people up to the senior level yet. So we either need to bring them in and level them up, or maybe this is not an or, but an and, wait a few years so that people can get more experience in that industry, and then we can start finding more diverse candidates for the senior level positions. That's kind of what I'm hearing. Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, this isn't necessarily just from a diversity standpoint either, but in Phoenix, it's good to be a developer, right? And people are not hard. If someone is good, they're not actively looking, they're not applying to jobs, and they're hardly ever even open to having a conversation. And so I think if you as a dev manager don't fully understand what you're working with as far as the market goes, and your expectations are too high and you're inflexible on bringing someone in, like, okay, if they're really, you have you all have your wish list of these are all the things I really want and I really need, and they need to have a great personality, and they need to go to meetups, and they need to do this, and they need to walk on water. Like, you have your list that you want to meet, but I think being willing to compare that list of needs and wants and desires with the current state of what's available and what's realistic for you to make a timely hire is really knowing for yourself as a manager, what can you be flexible on? What can you spend a week letting a developer teach themselves, or whatever it is? Because I consistently am surprised by how many clients. You have a list of needs for a reason, right? You have a product that needs to be pushed out, or you just have a lot of needs. But at the same time, I think there is this candidate pool of developers who are so hungry to learn that they will spend hours on their own teaching themselves whatever they need to do in order to add value to your team.
Yeah.
But there's a tendency in that managers and whoever's in the hiring position are not willing to look at candidates who don't have all the things. Mm-hmm. And, you know what I mean? And so I think that they would get more loyal employees and just have a better overall result in filling out their teams if they were willing to be more flexible in certain areas and just, give somebody a week. Tell somebody, you can learn this technology. I'm going to give you a week to do it. Come show me what you can do. How valued they would feel and how much more loyal they would want to stay to you. I'm surprised that more don't do that. So that's my 2 cents on.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's a lot of sense. The employees got to change the way they're looking for the candidates, like, seriously. Because I think I fell in that I think I fell kind of in that category. Like I was just super hungry. I didn't have this is back like about 7 or 8 years ago when I first started. But, I was super hungry and I didn't know the language or technology. I guess I didn't have the experience, but I had the hunger, and I came in and just really showed like, hey, I can learn fast. Just, give me like a week or two and I can learn the system. And, and now, I've blossomed into this developer today, a software engineer. So
yeah, I know it's risky for any manager to you can't take a chance on everyone, but I think just being a little bit more open to that would help managers fill out their team and fill it with the right people, because I think at the end of the day, you can hire a developer who can get the job done, but are they truly a good fit for your team long term?
Yeah.
I think that hires are made every day because of they can do the job, but might not be the best fit for the team. And I think as a manager, you have to keep in mind that the culture of your team is more important than anything else. Because if you hire a cancer and some, you know what I mean, that will spread. And
it just takes one. That's the thing. It just takes one. It really does.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's all the time we have today. I have way more respect for all recruiters out there. So shout out to all the hardworking recruiters, the ones that are like spending the time, really like digging deep into what they're trying to do and just like learning. And I mean, that's just amazing. So shout out to all the good recruiters out there. What's the best way for everybody to contact you? Is, LinkedIn? What are your contact, email?
Yeah. So I hang out on LinkedIn most every single day, and I'm pretty open to connecting. Bonus points if you send me a personalized connection request. No one does anymore. So find me on LinkedIn, Dayna, Dayna Ciarfalia, Ciarfalia, and then you can email me at Dayna, Dayna @concentriccorp.com.
Well, cool. Thank you for being our first guest. I think that went awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
I have like a million questions, but we can't have this interview being 3 hours long. But I learned a lot. Eddie, any closing remarks? Any final thoughts?
I just want to thank you for coming and being on the podcast. We're trying to start up something cool in the Valley and to get really awesome recruiters and people in the tech industry to come on and talk with us. We really appreciate it.
I love it. Thank you guys for having me. It was awesome.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Hey, this is Debug This Podcast. I'm Kevia Cloud with Eddie SanMarco, Dayna Ciarfalia. Thanks for being on our show, and we'll see you guys next time. Out.